remember when he got me in that kind of 3/4 Nelson, and he was just kind of wrenching, and I just had my hands out. I just felt like he was trying to choke me out. And in my mind, I'm like, he's strong. This is tight, but you know, that's it. Like I got to get out right now.
Jordan Blanton, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, man. There's a lot to talk about. We were just chatting off air on some of the big matchups you were in, two, maybe the biggest Illinois, not state finals matches, but two of the biggest matches in the IHSA tournament in the 2000s, maybe all time. But let's go back to the Wrestling Factory days, man. What was that room like when you were a youngster?
So to be honest, the story probably starts a couple of years before that.
Okay.
And it starts when Vince and Tony Ramos wrestled for the State Line Wildcats, which is, we're probably talking when I was in 3rd grade or so, 4th grade. So I don't know, 2001, 2002, something like that. Got to meet them. They had just came from living in the Villa, what was it called? The Villa Park or Villa Lombard Cougars.
Yep.
They had wrestled for them. They came to the Wildcats, and I got introduced to them. Tony at the time was a hammer like he's always been. And Vince was really kind of starting to come into his own. They were with the club for 1 year, and then they left for the Wrestling Factory. In that time, we stayed close. And about 2 years, well, maybe 2-3 years later, however it worked out, when I was in 7th grade, I went to the Wrestling Factory, and that was basically a huge turning point in my whole wrestling career. My 2 training partners were Billy Lewis, who was a state champ that year at 138. I was at 130, and then Vince Ramos was at state champ at 122. Wow. So I was surrounded. They were both a year older than me. Showed me a ton. I learned how to drill. I learned how to train. I learned how to get better at wrestling, more so than just having heart, you know, and desire. I started to kind of add the technique into it. So that was pivotal. Like I said, I was on a team. I had those guys at Cameron Kennedy, Jordan Walsh, who was a good college wrestler, I think, for Northern Illinois heavyweight. Jimmy Kennedy had just graduated, and then there was kind of just a laundry list of younger guys that I was around and got to know, and that really took my wrestling career to the next step.
Were you or were you not on Team Zirconia?
I was. That's another time. So that was kind of a little part of what got me to the Wrestling Factory was, so that was my 6th grade year, was Team Zirconia, and I wrestled IHSA. My wrestling club coach at State Line Wildcats got the head coaching job at our middle school, and our middle school is bringing IHSA wrestling back for the first time maybe ever or in a long time. So I decided to do that. I had a good year. I was undefeated. I lost in the sectional finals to Ted Strachalski from Libertyville, another guy that's been around. I wrestled at IU, I believe, and still around in the wrestling world today. Then I go to the state tournament, win my first match, lose my second match. That guy loses to Justin Hale from Bloomington, another name that's been around. And that was my season. So I think it was about 12 or 14 matches. There was my season. And, there was a lot.
14 matches. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was tough. So I was also playing travel basketball at the time, and kind of at a crossroads at that point. Like, I wasn't a basketball player. I knew I wasn't a basketball player. But I knew that I didn't want to be just a state qualifier wrestler either. So if I was whichever direction I was going to go, I was going to have to take a little more seriously. So I go to Team Zirconia. Had a tough outing, only won 2 matches. I went 2-4. I still remember.
That was a tough tournament, dude. Franklin Park.
I was in 6th grade. I was young. It was the best of the best. My 2 wins were Virginia Challenge team and the IHSA state champ at the weight class below. So I got a little bit of revenge. I knew I was at a level where I could continue to progress and still kind of reach my goals. But I was like, 14 matches, that's not cutting it. Wrestling that IHSA schedule wasn't cutting it. And so that kind of re-entered the Ramoses. And I probably, in a 365-day year, I probably spent 300 plus days with their family, training, traveling, going to tournaments, going to practice during the week, lifting twice a week with them. My life changed, that year. And then there was no looking back. I was as hooked as I was probably the first time I ever stepped on a wrestling mat. It was almost like, the second version of that. Wrestling was now number one for the rest of my life after that.
And they were all in on it too, just going crazy hard at the time.
Oh yeah. Their parents were so supportive. It was like a family affair for them. So it was Al and Debbie Ramos, driving us. Al, I think pretty much every night, was driving us to and from practice. My parents would just drop me off at their house. We lived about 10 or 15 minutes away from each other at the time, Spring Grove and Johnsburg, Illinois. So I'd get dropped off there. We'd go to the factory, or we'd go and lift, or we'd go Saturday tournaments in Wisconsin, Sunday tournaments in Illinois. So it was a lot.
Wow, man. And then when did you start training with Izzy style?
So, 8th grade year. So 7th grade year, wrestling factory. 8th grade year, I was back in my hometown. Freshman year, I wrestled in the suburbs, but not quite. I kind of bounced around. I went to overtime a couple times for some training camps, and I was working with Ed Giese. He was at Addison Trail High School running the Dave Schultz Wrestling Club. And then I got my license my sophomore year. And then it was Montini after that. I was training with Izzy full time after that, my sophomore year.
And when you won it as a freshman, was it an upset, or were you favored to win single your freshman year?
I was never favored to win it rankings wise the whole year long, but I was undefeated, and I slowly just started beating people. So I think late in the year I was ranked 6th. And I beat Dakota wrestler Paul Graybill, who was a tough dude. That bumped me up into he was 4, I was 6. We flip-flopped. And then I won regionals. First round at sectionals, I just so happened to have Chuck Pearts. He was wrestling for Rock Island Allman at the time. I beat him. He was ranked 1st, but he lost in the regional finals. So I think maybe he was ranked 2nd at that point. So I climbed a little higher, but until I won it, I don't think I was the favorite the whole year.
You had Pearts first round. I know. I remember him from back in the day. That's crazy.
That was one of my proudest matches, probably all time.
Really?
He was beating me 4-1 in the first period, 2 takedowns, nothing pretty. I wasn't wrestling per se my best, but I started throughout the match to feel him go. And I got 2 or 3 third period takedowns. And the last one, I tied it up 6-6 and cut him with under 20 seconds left, because I knew he was under ropes. And I got the takedown. I won 8-7, and then kept the run going.
I was watching some of these Illinois matches you're talking about, getting ready for this. Illinois kids were cutting people like crazy back then. 20-second cuts. What were we thinking, man?
It's really funny strategy wise, because even like now as a coach, I don't know how I would play that situation, but as a competitor, in my heart and in my gut, if I had somebody on the ropes, every practice they do that. 20 seconds left, you're down by 1, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it is. I think that was just confidence in my training, a lot of self-belief, and wrestlers know if somebody's on the ropes, if they're going, if you can open it up and kind of put that pace on, typically you can make it happen. So that as a young, kind of 14, 15-year-old kid, I just had nothing but belief that I was going to be able to do it, and it worked out. So I think I was on the right track.
Definitely. When did you realize that grindman, that workman like style was going to be your calling card?
It's funny because I talk a lot about the Wrestling Factory, where I changed from I was always like a tough wrestler. I was always good, maybe the MVP of my club and whatnot. But I think that the best I ever did up until that point was 5th in the state twice. And there'd been years I went into the state tournament undefeated. There'd been years, where I had success, but I was kind of always on the doorstep and never got over the hump. But I think from my first year of wrestling, it was pace, conditioning, wrestle hard, chain wrestle, wrestle through positions. But I would shoot with my head down, and it would be, I couldn't really pick and choose when I was going to score. It was just like effort. And eventually things would kind of turn around in a match and go my direction. 7th grade, when I started learning how to penetrate, how to take shots, how to set guys up, that was kind of where it started. And then, ultimately everything in my wrestling style just got reinforced when I started training with Izzy. From my belief to my pace and pressure, everything kind of just took steps up from there.
Talk about how a guy like Izzy impacts your belief and confidence in yourself.
I think about that often, because now I'm finding myself in a coaching position and trying to get my wrestlers to believe in themselves and trying to get their minds to click in a certain way. And, with Izzy, I think it's just one of his skills that I really haven't seen matched around too many places, even though I've been around so many high level coaches. But the way he can say things in one sentence or less and just make you sit and think about it and allow you to interpret it and kind of go through the process of, well, what did that mean? What does he mean by that when he says it? And then I think that helped me create my own understanding of what he was talking about. And then, it was just a constant reinforcement in my training, in my drilling, hitting a wall, finding a way to push the wall back or get over it, finding a way to score again late in a period or late in a go when I'm tired and when I've been pushing myself. But he just, he found the right things to say that allowed me to continue to develop and grow. And there was no ceiling. There was no point where I ever felt like, all right, I reached that. I can look elsewhere. It was always mental. It was always trying to just kind of elevate my game in all of those different levels.
It's exciting when you're around a coach that gets you excited to raise your game and kind of show off for them,
Oh, I don't think there's anything like it, and I think you could kind of take that statement and apply it to teachers, to business leaders and managers and coaches. When you're around somebody that is passionate and about something that you're passionate about and like-minded, and they've been to where you've been, or they know how to get where you want to go, and you have that full belief in them, that trusting the process, sayings that you kind of read on the cliche sayings that you read on the back of t-shirts, but that's really how my mind kind of thinks. I had full, complete trust in him. I felt like he knew what the highest levels of wrestling was, and that was what I wanted. I was just kind of a young kid from Richmond, Illinois, that was trying. I'd already, reached a fair amount of success, but I was hungry for more. And he had an environment where I can grow and build and kind of work towards all those goals.
And after a workout at Montini, how far of a drive is that? Just to preface, like an hour?
Oh no, you're looking at an hour and a half easy.
Hour and a half. So you'd leave a practice at Montini all jacked up. What would you think about in your drive home or drive there? Would you visualize a lot?
I mean, I think Mike Benefiel and Chris Spangler is what I thought about when I left. I was going through some old wrestling stuff, and I was reading these interviews that I did, and it, for 2 years, those two matches, that was what I thought about when I woke up. That was what I thought about when I went to sleep. That's kind of where my thoughts drifted in class or whatever it was. I was really kind of at a point where I thought those were the two guys each year that I was going to have to beat to accomplish my goals. And I think it was that. So I think it was just a lot of dreaming and visualizing and going through positions and wrestling the match, you know, hundreds and thousands of times before I ever even stepped out there, you know?
I mean, you talk about those two matchups. I mean, those are matches that the entire season revolved around, not just you or your weight class. Like all of Illinois wrestling was waiting for those two matchups. So let's start with the first one. So your junior year, you are undefeated, two-time state champ. Benefiel, not undefeated, but just unstoppable. Ironman champ as a sophomore. You guys met in the finals. What was the buildup like as you got into like January and February of that season?
You know, it was crazy because I knew we were going up to AA early on, my sophomore year spring. And I remember the first day I went to Izzy style in my sophomore year. It must have been after freestyle state, my sophomore year. I worked out with Tony Marty and who was coaching, helping Izzy at the time, and a couple other guys. And I stayed after and I did a bunch of drilling from a 2-on-1 position and for probably maybe 30 minutes or so. And I remember just being like, coming home and telling my dad, I'm like, I'm telling you what, if I keep going and I keep training here, I'm 100% going to beat Benefiel. Like that was just where I was at. We're talking maybe, you know, the spring of 2006 or something.
So the year before.
Yeah, it was the year before. You know, so that's where my mind was early on. And I also wasn't fooling myself either. I didn't think I was the favorite. You know, I felt like I had to close the gap on him, and I felt like I was chasing him. I certified at 160 that year. I never had a thought of going down and dropping down late in the year. So as the season went on and as that match started building up, I remember because I was on Illinois Matmen message boards every day, and I'd see threads. So I was like, you know, don't read it. But I'd find myself clicking it and reading, what are people saying? You know? And I tried to block it out. And I think I did a pretty decent job of not letting it affect me, what other people said or anything like that. But I just remember pages and pages and pages of guys, you know, going back and forth talking. My dad was involved in it. My father-in-law, I was dating my high school sweetheart's my wife now. So I remember her dad had a username and I'd catch, you know, posting once in a while. Like, it was funny, you know, it was really interesting. I didn't know any better, you know. Again, I'm living in Richmond, Illinois, trying to be the best wrestler that I can be. But, you know, my daily,
which is the sticks for people, not the sticks, but it's not the city. Like,
no, it's not
even close to the suburbs.
I think I would just call it like right outside the suburbs. You know, You go one direction and there's nothing, you know, but cornfields and rural land, and you go a different direction and you go into population, you know, but we're kind of right on the outskirts. So,
had you wrestled Benefiel in practice? Was he at Montini when you were going there?
I had worked out with him in 2006 at the junior dual training camp at Overtime. I spent some time working out with him there.
How'd it go?
Not great, but enough where I felt like, you know what, like I think I could beat him. But I know he fireman's me in that workout and took me down that way. And to be honest, I don't, you know, outside of that, I remember getting in some good flurries where he got the best of me, but ultimately I was just like, that was bad practice. I know I can beat him. You know, that was kind of what I chalked it up to. And that was it though. He was never in the room at Montini when I was in the room at Montini. Our paths didn't cross very often until.
So was he at Overtime a lot then?
Yeah, I think he was training consistently there.
Got it. So which is so funny because, you know, your club coach is his high school coach.
Yep.
And so there was that dynamic. And so when you think about wrestling him, and now you've wrestled, you know, the best guys in the whole country throughout your career at Illinois, but thinking back then, you know, what made him so tough as a high school wrestler?
I just think he was just like ridiculously strong, ridiculously good at positioning. He could explode. He was fast, but he had a level of wrestling when we were in high school that, I think, and I guess there's probably no way to tell, but if you look at his results as a true freshman, when he was at Northwestern wrestling at the Midlands and stuff like that, when you watch his college career, how it played out at Oklahoma State, I mean, I think he was, capable of having very similar results to that, even when he was 17, 18 years old. I just think he was at a high level. And from such a young age, he was so used to winning. He knew what it took to get, to get his hand raised, bottom line. And I just don't think I was there at that point. Could the match have gone differently if the first period went differently? Of course. And that's kind of in my mind. My whole plan was to wrestle tough early, stay out of anything big early, and then allow the match to progress, and then be ready to go in the third period and chase him down and close the gap and try and get a late takedown or something. But that's not how it went, and he was in the driver's seat basically from start to finish. So that was just a learning experience for me. And, more than anything, I think that just really kind of lit the fire that there was no way I was going to let that happen twice in a row and go out like that. If, and when I say there was no way it was going to happen, if it would have happened, I would have still woken up the next day and continued along my journey. But that kind of, that loss kind of helped me refocus and say, well, now my senior year, no stone left unturned. I got to make sure that I go out on top. Because otherwise everybody would have had everything to say,
Right.
You never got it done in AA, this, that, and the other thing. So
at that point, was Spangler even on the radar?
Nope.
He was so small.
Not at that point. So, I'm trying to think, because that off season, my mindset was, all right, I got to wrestle Benefiel again and get a rematch. So Freestyle State, we were in the same bracket. And he actually had high school graduation. So the second day when it would have been us in the finals, he went home. So I didn't get to wrestle him there. So then the next opportunity was Fargo. And I'm pretty sure he won my Fargo bracket. Yeah, I'm almost positive he won my Fargo bracket in 2007. And I lost to Grant Gambrell, and
from Iowa City.
Yep, from Iowa City West. I lost to him, and I lost to somebody else, and I took 7th that year. So
okay.
So I didn't have my chance to get revenge or anything, but there is a little, I guess, cherry on top to the Benefiel rivalry, just because my true sophomore year at college, we both made the quarterfinals. He lost to, I think, I don't know, Binghamton kid, or maybe it was the second round. He lost to a Binghamton kid. And I lost to Jay Borschel in the quarterfinals. And we came down and we were kind of on a collision course to wrestle either in the round of 12 or the match after. So then in my mind, and this is 2010, but in my stomach, in my gut, in my heart, I'm like, okay, since 2007, you wanted this rematch. And he actually got knocked off by a kid from Ohio University. So then I think I beat the Ohio U kid in the round of 12. And that was like a little bit of a consolation prize for me. Like, all right, well, I made my first All-American honors, and I kind of got over the hump a little bit in my mind. Like, all right, I know that had it been him, I felt like I was in a position where I could have wrestled my match and won. And so I take that now as a little bit of a consolation.
So it sounds like something that was a huge motivator for you, though, for like the rest of your career after that.
I think so. I mean, I think you could probably say it's still a motivator to me today. Like,
wow.
that was, I had 111 matches in a row I'd won at that point. Sports Illustrated did an article on us, and the title was Streakers Collide. He actually had a longer winning streak going at that time. So he was at like 120 matches. I was at 110 basically when.
Oh my God.
And, you know, I think from the outside, and this is what I would say to my wrestlers as a coach now, like 111 matches in a row, like that's great, you know, but my focus is on the next match. My focus isn't backwards. I'm not worried. What's happened has happened, you know, and good, bad, ugly. Like, I'm focused on the future, and I'm focused on figuring out my position and my trajectory. So my position is like where I'm at now. And is my trajectory going up or down? I could be in a bad spot. You know, my position might be, hey, I just lost, you know, so I'm on a 1-match losing streak. But what's my trajectory? You know, if I feel like I'm moving forward and I'm heading forward, then that's, you know, that's a positive thing. If I would have taken that loss and been like, oh, all I worked for, it's all taken away from me, you know, it's all gone, I don't think that would have been constructive at all. I did my best. I came up short. I woke up the next day and I kind of reset my goals and kept moving forward. I don't think it really, it didn't get me down. I don't even know if I cried, to be honest. I don't even know if I shed a tear. I was just like, that sucked, you know, like that. Like, the million times I played that match in my head, I didn't think it was going to go that way, you know, but it did. And I think my parents did a lot of talking like that when I was younger. It was like, the next morning, the sun's going to rise. We're still going to love you. Like, it's just a wrestling match.
Right.
And to be honest, in my life nowadays, like, that's my whole philosophy. No matter what happens today, tomorrow, that sun's going to come out. I'm going to wake up. My wife's going to be by my side. My family's going to be by my side. And I'm going to have an opportunity to go and kind of take whatever's next. And that's, I think, what my mindset was then and my mindset is now.
I love it because it's controlling what you can control. And so with that in mind, you know, like, take us into your senior year. What was your daily routine? Were you running hills in the morning, Rocky Balboa style? I mean, what was your regime?
Yeah. So, you know, again, awesome story. I was fortunate enough going into my senior year. I got 2 new assistant coaches at my high school. Tyrone Bird, 4-time NCAA qualifier for the University of Illinois, you know, multiple-time state champ, been, you know, to the highest levels, and was an Illinois alumni. And then John Murphy, who was, he runs Old School Wrestling, Omega School of Wrestling now. And he was at the time a professional mixed martial artist, professional jiu-jitsu player, mat rat, you know, always training, really close with Clay Guida. So, you know, my training situation going into my senior year, to be honest, I was focused on the next level. I think continuing to progress and get to the next level. So at home, I had those coaches along with my head coach, Brett Wojcik. And I was developing relationships, and they were mentoring me in a lot of different ways. I was going to Izzy, training with him, with my practice partners there, and had, you know, great surroundings there. And then I was basically just focused on continuing to climb, continuing to grow. I think my goals probably at the beginning of my senior year were to wrestle in the Dapper Dan, to win senior nationals, to win Fargo. And then probably number 4 was the high school state title at that time.
Were you doing a lot of morning workouts too?
So that's what I was trying to work myself back to. So Tyrone, Coach Bird, was my PE teacher, and we did what was called competitive weights and conditioning at my high school at 7 a.m. before school. So my routine was, you know, a lot of times it was, the class is going to go and we're going to do this, and Jordan's going to go run 5 miles on the treadmill and watch Chris Spangler wrestle, or watch whatever, you know. That was a lot of it. So I was lifting and running every morning before school with our strength program. But it was kind of cool because I got a little bit more of like wrestling geared, wrestling specific training through that. And that was a huge help in giving me an edge my senior year. I just felt like I could go forever. I was training hard. I was in a good place.
Yeah, I bet you and T-Bird had some wars back then.
There's in those videos, those state videos, there's a really good kind of clip of me training. I think they played it right before
the Jumbotron.
Yeah, it was like a Jumbotron video or something. And it's great because you see me like get in on this double leg on Bird and take him down. But I think I'd be lucky if I ever got a takedown on him at that time that he didn't let me get. He was just at such a high level at that point. But it was great. And his top wrestling was so good. He used to kind of maul me because he was big and strong and he had that college experience, but he never really like steamrolled me to a point where I got discouraged. He was always kind of helping me become a better and better wrestler. And I'm super grateful for that.
I mean, that's just an incredible workout situation.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of reminds me of how Poeta had Griff Powell late into his high school years.
When you look at those two scenarios, I mean, the way it worked out. Now, keep in mind too, I was committed to Iowa at this point, so
that's right.
Illinois wasn't even really in the question. But the night that I decommitted from Illinois, and if you want
from Iowa or from Illinois,
I'm sorry, from Iowa. That's kind of a great story. So I guess I'll just tell this story and
hit me
to give you an idea of how great my high school coach Wojcik was and how great Tyrone was being there for me in that moment. And then how things transpired from there. It was a blessing, ultimately I was super fortunate to have the people around me that I did, but letter of intent week, they're sending out the national letter of intent. I go to school on, whichever morning, like everything's fine. I go to school, I go to wrestling practice, I come home and my parents are sitting at the table like, we need to talk. And I'm like, something bad happened. They're like, we got a call this morning from Wes Hand, who was the assistant coach at the time. And I took my visit September 28th to Iowa. This is now early November sometime.
Junior year or senior year?
This is my senior year.
Okay.
Fall of my senior year. So I took my unofficial visit like in the May prior, but I took my official visit in September, the last weekend in September. And they were talking about Alex Sertzis redshirting. Well, I was like, oh, okay. So, my freshman year, Sertzis will still be there. I didn't think anything of it. But they called the day that the national letter of intent was getting sent out. And they told my mom, like, Sertzis is redshirting. We need to come up with money. Would you guys be willing to give 40% back your first year and then go back up to a full ride? Really, it would have been 90% the next years after. And that was what I originally committed to, 90%.
Yeah.
And so
I was insane.
Exactly. So, they had Mark Perry, they had Metcalf, Borschel, Slayton. They were on the up and up. I was like all in. I was so excited. I spent multiple weekends in Iowa City training that summer leading up to it. Izzy took me out there a couple times. I got to run Carver. I got to train in their room. I got to be around those guys, stayed in their apartments or their houses, watched how they lived. Everything was great. I was all on board. But I was definitely an outsider. I didn't have like even though it's only one state over and Jordan Johnson was there and I was pretty close with him. Tyler Clark. No, I think Tyler Clark was at Iowa State at the time. But I was close with those guys
but you were an outsider, you said?
But I was an outsider. I just felt like I was an outsider. Well, meaning it wasn't like I was representing, are going to join a team that I'd known everybody my whole life.
Right.
And I didn't really even consider that at the time, but I was spending all that time out there and I was really looking forward to going to school there. Well, they called and they're like, Sertzis is redshirting. Where are you willing to take money back? So my parents tell me that and I'm like, like a kick in the gut. That's kind of weird. I'm like, I don't really know what to say about that. I don't want to do that though. So, you know, what are options? And the number one thing that I was thinking was, if I take 60% my freshman year, there's no way that they're going to up it to 100% after that. You know, it's like one of those things.
Yeah.
If you take the smaller number now, it's not going to circle back around and get back. And I just felt that in my gut.
Were you leaning at all against Iowa at this point since Tyrone Bird was there? Nothing.
No. So, you know, consciously I wasn't, maybe subconsciously,
but you were thinking Iowa's all good.
When everything kind of, from this moment, when the things that come into like the orbit, you know, it maybe, I guess, but as I explain it, I think it'll make more sense. So I'm like, well, let's call Coach Wojcik and Coach Bird, explain the situation, and just kind of like go from there. So they drop, you know, they're at home. They got their own personal lives, families, everything going. They drop what they're doing and they come over for dinner. Them, along with my training partner, best friend, Joby Bodie. He used to come over every night for dinner. So it was basically us six at my dinner table. We're talking about the situation. They're like, you know, what do you think? I'm like, I still want to go to Iowa, but you know, I don't want to do it at that price. So I don't want to decommit, but I just don't want to sign. And I want to wrestle my senior year. And then I want to focus in the spring. I kind of wanted to bet on myself, I think, you know, and just say, I'll pick this back up in the spring, and hopefully there will be something that can happen. Was kind of the glass half full way that I was going to look at it. So coaches leave. Thank you. You know, thank you guys for coming over. We just talked it through, and that was what I ended up feeling that I wanted to do. So I go up in my room and put the phone on speaker, and me and Joby are sitting there and call Tom Brands. He answers the phone, and I'm like, hey coach, you know, my mom talked to Wes Hand earlier today. We talked about it, and I don't want to decommit. I'm not saying that I still want to be a Hawkeye, but I don't want to sign right now. I kind of want to just hold off on any college decision-making until the spring. He, first thing I think he says is, I knew you were wishy-washy. So he kind of like came out real strong right away. I knew you were wishy-washy. I've been hearing that you didn't want to come here and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's not the case at all. You know, that's not what I was thinking. But it was kind of like a little bit like he was turning the situation around on my lack of commitment to wanting to go to Iowa. So I'm just kind of getting reamed out on the phone, you know, in like a Tom Brands fashion, which, you know, I'm like super grateful to have had this experience and everything, but it was super uncomfortable. Like I was a young kid. I looked up to Brands. I still do to this day. Like, you know, I hold him in the highest regard, but he's, you know, him and I are not seeing eye to eye on this. And I'm not like disrespectful or, you know, I'm not really even trying to assert myself over him. I'm just kind of taking it. And he's like, is your dad there? You know, let me talk to your dad. And my dad's hardcore. He's a tough dude. I know you've met him, Ryan.
Let's go, baby.
He's himself, you know, through and through. And he doesn't really take a backseat to anybody, Olympic champion or not. So I bring the phone downstairs and I'm like, Dad, Coach Brands wants to talk to you. And when he was sitting at the computer in our computer room, and he picks up the phone and they start going back and forth. And Brands is such an intense person. So he comes out of the gate and he's intense, and the phone's not on speaker anymore. So I don't remember everything, but I know what my dad's last sentence was. And they're going back and forth shouting. I mean, straight up yelling at each other. And the last thing my dad says is, you know what? You guys go your way. We'll go ours. Click. That was it.
Oh my God.
I'm like, you know, and I'm an easygoing guy. So I like look at my buddy Joby and I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens now. You know, that was something.
Wow.
So 5 minutes later, Wes Hand calls. He's like, hey, Jordan, I just talked to Coach Brands. Is there any way we can act like that never happened and just continue along with the original agreement you come into Iowa, like everything's normal.
At the 90 or the 60?
At the 90.
No.
And
They came back at the 90.
I'm like, you know, like I just don't feel
hell no
doing that right now, you know? And that was that. So that was basically the last time I ever talked to the Iowa coaching staff as a recruit.
How nervous were you to call Brands that night?
I mean, not super nervous. Like it was just uncomfortable. It was one of those things as a young man, like there was no way I could get out of it, you know? Yeah. So I just kind of like embraced it and it was what it was. I didn't expect it going like that, you know? I probably thought there was a better chance that Benefiel was going to fireman's me in the first period. Then my dad was going to hang up yelling at Brands on the phone. So, you know, it was what it was, but you know, back to like the blessing side of this. So I'm a little bit blindsided by all of this and kind of just interpreting it and kind of maneuvering through it as it came along. But by the grace of God, the next day, Tyrone has like a teacher's field trip for strength and conditioning down at U of I. So I update him in Wojcik and I'm like, you know, I decommitted from Iowa. I don't want to open myself up. I don't want to be recruited right now. I just want to wrestle my senior year, and then I'll pick this up in the spring. And that was kind of my mindset going into it. Well, Bird's like, you know, I'm going down to Illinois. Would you mind if I told Coach Johnson, Hef, Hunter, and Perry that this happened? I'm like, absolutely. You can tell them, you know, it's no secret. I think the next day or within the next couple of days, it reached Intermat Wrestling and the USA Wrestling Boards and Illinois Mat Men and stuff like that. And to be honest, I don't even remember that. But I do remember as it started to go public, a lot of coaches reaching out during a dead period, trying to just throw their hat a little bit in the ring. And I didn't respond to any text, anything from, you know, I guess I won't say names on air, but some guys that, you know, are the top of the top as far as coaches goes, in my opinion. That would be an honor to wrestle for and everything. And in my gut, the only two options for me at that time were Wisconsin and Illinois, because Wisconsin had Travis Rutt and Andrew Howe coming in, and Illinois had Conrad Poles coming in on top of, you know, everybody else from my, you know, from my recruiting class and that I had known. So those were the two places that in my gut, I felt like maybe even were on the table. But
did you visit Illinois before that or no?
I had not taken a visit to Illinois. I took my visit to Iowa in May on my sister's birthday, May 11th. So, of my junior year. So, you know, February was the state tournament, March, April, May. I won the Western Junior Regional. I beat Cam Simaz in the finals, had a really tough bracket out there. And I remember like Cale Sanderson, Tom Brands, Jim Zaleski, a bunch of these tough coaches are watching my finals match. I win 2-0, 7-0. I ankle pick him to a leg lace in the second period, like Cale Sanderson, you know, like technique, and get the tech fall in the second period, win the tournament. And then the floodgates were open recruiting wise. I mean, I was already getting recruited hard and everything, but that was when coaches were traveling, kind of going, watching me practice at Izzy style, calling or texting. At the time, texting was legal, so everything was through text. And I was like, this isn't sustainable. Like, I'm going to have to make a decision pretty quick. I visited Michigan State. I visited Northwestern. I visited maybe one other place or something like that. But as soon as I went to Iowa, it was a done deal. I'm walking down the street in Iowa City, and there's people that have nothing to do with the program wearing Iowa wrestling, you know, like it was different. So I was like, I was hooked. That was where I want to go. But to kind of wrap up the story, Tyrone's going to Champaign the next day. He tells Johnson. So that was like on a Friday. On a Saturday, my dad and I, just to kind of get away, we go out and watch a Dakota High School playoff game. Their football team was in the playoffs. So we drive out to Dakota. I watch a game. I see the Albers. I see Scott Nicholas, a bunch of guys that I'd known over the years from out there. And we're driving back towards my hometown on the way home, and a voicemail comes through on my phone, and it's Mark Johnson. It's like, "Hey, Jordan, this is Mark Johnson. Coach Bird or Tyrone told me the news about Iowa. I want you to know, like, we want you. You're our guy. Like, I would love to come and sit and talk with you at your earliest convenience." So we get home and I talk to him, and I'm like, okay, like, sure. He comes up on a Sunday afternoon, spends like probably 2 or 3 hours at my house. And from that conversation, it was done. I was like, all right, Illinois it is. That was signing week or whatever going into it. So that was Friday, Saturday, Sunday right there. The following Friday, I went to Illinois, and then I signed my letter of intent within a week. I mean,
wow.
I from Iowa. Johnson came to my house. I went to Illinois and I signed my letter of intent, a new letter of intent. I had one from Iowa and I signed the one from Illinois within like a 1 week period. It was nuts.
What kind of presence does Mark Johnson bring to the living room?
I mean, it's so hard. It's so hard to say who he is from a personality and just like almost an icon standpoint. I've met so many people in my life, been fortunate to meet all types of wrestlers, wrestling personalities, people with all different personality traits and stuff, but I've just never met anybody that was maybe as well-rounded, but still rough around the edges as Johnson. He was so tough. He had just this I guess ability. He's like a politician meets like, a thought leader meets like, a bodybuilder. So yeah. It's like you have so much different things going. And so again, Dan Gable, Tom Brands, these people that I was meeting, Doug Schwab, these people that I was meeting at Iowa, are on the national stage, the biggest names that you can get. But there was definitely, and I think it goes back to Poeta and Jimmy and Durgo and these guys that I'd looked up to my whole life growing up. They were all wrestling at Illinois. And when I'm sitting there talking to Coach Johnson, I start really visualizing myself wearing an Illinois singlet, wrestling with those guys. It was a very easy transition from the track that my mind was on to Illini till I die, yeah. And that's since that day in November, that's how I've been. I just kind of pivoted and never looked back.
Could you looking back now, could you even imagine your life being any other way than a Illini wrestler?
It's, it's so funny. I think about it, and I still have tons of like Hawkeye memorabilia that I'm looking to get rid of. It'd probably look great in your studio.
Yeah, I think it would look great in the studio.
I have some great stuff. I'm keeping all the Gable stuff, but the Hawkeye stuff is on the market. So
we'll do a couple giveaways with it.
When I send you the Relentless Training Center t-shirt, I'm going to send a little care package with it.
Dude, we're going to get to that too. But I just think it's so cool because Mark Johnson's a guy who just evokes trust. And it's like, as anyone who's going to lead anyone, you're like, how is he able to develop trust in such a real way so quickly?
I don't have an answer for that, but right. That's a great way to put it. I've never seen anything like it. He changed my life like drastically. Just the way that he was, the man that he was. Like, I was thinking I was going to put everything off and I'll just deal with it then. But he came in and made such an impression, such an impact. And he is a closer too, because I don't even know going into that conversation if I even wanted to get to that, commitment, signing, whatever thing. But when he had said his piece and when we'd sat at that table, I was like, Cale Sanderson, anybody else out there, Barry Davis, like I'm wrestling for Illinois. That was just the way it was going to be.
Wow. And so with that in the rear view, you could squarely focus on winning your first AA state title.
Yep.
And as luck would have it, another iconic match, you and Chris Spangler. Spangler had been a state champ at 103, and then he had bumped his way up. But that year he was undefeated and ranked super high nationally. You were ranked, I think you were both ranked top 5 nationally.
Yep.
And you guys met in the semis. And I was watching it today. The chills are on my body now. I've never heard Assembly Hall that loud. What were you thinking in the tunnel before you went out there?
In the tunnel, confident, a lot of belief, the same thing as always. Move your feet, pull on his head, get to the third period, and that's when you can. If you're in shooting distance, I was going to run them down. That was always my philosophy. I didn't think I was going to get taken down in the first period 3 times, but I felt like, there was very few ways, unless I went to my back, that he was going to be able to outscore me for 7 minutes. So my thought process was go out there and defend your legs. I didn't get that part down. But
were you panicking at all when you had the third takedown in the first?
No, no panic ever.
Okay.
That word really doesn't exist in my vocabulary.
Let's go. Come on now.
It is what it is. Panicking wasn't going to help me no matter what. So I think my thought process, my mentality was just, I got to find a way to slow down these attacks, because I was just stepping right into them,
Yeah.
I literally was, it almost looked like we were drilling when I watch it, and I don't know if that was like some of that performance anxiety or some, trying to work myself into the match. But I remember when he got me in that kind of 3/4 Nelson, and he was just kind of wrenching, and I just had my hands out. I just felt like he was trying to choke me out. And in my mind, I'm like, he's strong. This is tight, but that's it. Like I got to get out right now. That escape that I got at the end of the first period changed the match big time. But even again, like I think I had a bloody nose right before that, and my coaches are like 10 seconds. And again, this is a training situation that I've put myself in a million times. Like 10 seconds left, get to your feet, fight is lock. Maybe you get a stall call, maybe you get an escape. Rarely do you get both. I was fortunate to get.
Oh my God.
As soon as they hit him for stalling, I was like, all right, fight the hands. I got that one. And then I was right back in a good position. But again, I was just going to keep wrestling no matter what. And that was the bottom line.
Watching that match really shows you how valuable it is to ride, because had he been able to ride you, I mean, it changes I'm sure you still would have battled the whole way through. I know you would have, but the dynamic of the match just changes. All of a sudden it's 6-4 at the, after in the second. And it's like, just like that, it's like, you got to ride people. I know Illinois guys, that's our knock, but as a coach now, you must really see that.
Those, and from the position I was in where I was trailing, to be able to get a late period escape and then start the second period with an escape, that's 2 points. The value of those 2 points is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just as valuable as a takedown, not to mention just the momentum shift and everything. So you're right. I mean, that was a huge moment in the match, but even, the way the match continued to progress as the second period came on, when I finally got the first takedown, and then especially the third period, I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way or anything, but I think I could have got 2 or 3 more takedowns in that match. Like I was in a position to just keep scoring points. That was my mindset. So if I would have needed 3 or 4 or 5 takedowns in the third period, I think my mind was in a place where if that's what it was going to take, that's what it was going to take. I wasn't even going to think about anything other than getting to those legs. And, Ed Giese was doing the call. I watched the match recently, and he did such a great job. He stayed super neutral, and you could see at the beginning, he was like surprised that Spangler was getting in as easy as he was, and the match was going the way that it was. And then on the backside, in that third period, you know, I had him on the ropes for sure. And I just felt like I could have just stayed attacking and, you know, kept scoring points.
Do you ever notice he was doing this thing with his headgear where he would like run his finger across his strap like that? Every time I watch him, like, what is he doing? Not even disrespecting the guy. I'm just saying, like, I noticed that. I'm like, what is that? It must have been like a tick or something.
I think that's a tick. You know, I think that's one of the ways he probably reset his mind. One of the, you know, like, and there was a couple of things throughout the match. Like one time he took a roundabout way to the circle, you know, and that was one of those tells for me when I was getting guys was, for me, it was a race back to the center. You go out of bounds, it's a race back to the center. No walking, no take your time and recover. Mm-hmm. It was first one back to the line, you know, antsy, like, I want to get this match. Keep going. And that's a little bit of that Iowa mentality. Like you never want to take injury time, blood time. Come on, hurry up. That was my mentality too. Like, let's get right back to it. Some guys like Burroughs fixing a sock or, you know, all different stuff like that. I think Kendall Cross has some good stories about how he wanted to reset his mind when they'd go out of bounds. And for me, I was watching what my opponent was doing because if they just wanted one extra gasp of air, I felt like I was getting to them, and that would be blood in the water for me.
You were war machine mode, dude. You were going. Dude, sure. And once you finally, and for folks who are listening, check out this match on YouTube. Blanton Spangler, just unbelievable. And there's just so much else that goes into it with the perception of the Spanglers and how tough they were. And it was just a lot of drama involved. So it was really fun. And just the noise level at Assembly Hall was berserk. And this was a Saturday morning. So it's just a really iconic match. We're not going to get to the college creator day. We'll do that one in person, hopefully when I come out to the training center, but we got to talk about this. What is the RTC Training Center? You and Prater are starting this up, and it stands for Relentless Training.
Yep, Relentless Training Center.
Fill us in on it, man, because it's exciting.
It's super exciting. So I moved back to my hometown in February. My wife and I bought a house in my hometown, and actually her sister is engaged to Ryan Prater. So Prater and I have been wrestling together going back to Disney Duels and Fargo and stuff from high school. We were teammates. We roomed together at Illinois for a time. And, you know, we've been in each other's lives for a long time. They've been dating for about 10 years. I've been with my wife for like 13 years. So we've spent a lot of time together over the years. When they bought their house, he was coaching at Elmhurst. When they bought their house up here, we started talking about, you know, planting our roots and kind of getting involved up here. And we just started during quarantine, coaching like a couple one-on-ones with some kids and in the area. And as things started to lighten up a little bit, we started going to an actual wrestling facility, not just a basement, and training like that. We built it up to about, 10 or 15 kids. And then we're like, you know, I think we have something here. I think with all the rules and regulations right now, we didn't know when the right time would be to launch the club. But basically just through a tremendous amount of like people asking, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you run a practice? We're like, you know, I think we have enough kids where at least would be worth our while to look around and try and find a building and find some mats and really try and grow this. So that was how it started. We were doing it at a gym, a fitness center in town. But we just got a 3,200 square feet pole barn in Woodstock. Greenwood is the town, and it's basically 5 minutes from Richmond High School. So
nice.
Richmond, it's right up the road. It's super centrally located between Woodstock and Huntley and Antioch and Grant and all these great Crystal Lake schools, like all these great programs in the area, and everybody's driving to either Poeta or Izzy or going all over the place. We wanted to create an off-season training center where the best kids from McHenry County or over the state line in Wisconsin or really from anywhere could come in, get some high-level coaching. You know, Prater was a Division III national champion. He's got a laundry list of names that he's pinned and beat at the Division I level. You know, he's had huge success his whole career.
Yeah.
And he's got a really great style. He's a heavy hand fighter, super funky scrambler, and great on top.
I bet his personality just resonates with the kids.
Oh, he's got nothing but energy. It's great. You know, we're kind of like good cop, bad cop. You know, he's like, with our big guys, he's punching them in the ribs and grabbing them and messing with them. And I'm like kind of patting him on the ass or on the butt, like, come on, buddy, you got it. But it's a great dynamic. The energy in our room is awesome. We got ropes. We probably got enough space for about 50 wrestlers. We got a little over 2 full-size mats in there.
So they down now? Mats are down?
The mats are down. We just posted some pictures. We just posted some pictures on our Facebook. We're on Facebook and Instagram, Relentless Training Center. And there's a lot of content out there. There'll be a lot more as things go. But this now is, something that we're looking at for the next, several decades. This is going to be a huge commitment to us. I want to be involved in wrestling. I want to try and train the next generation of champions. I grew up in an area, those schools that I'm talking about, Huntley, Antioch, Crystal Lake, Woodstock, Grant, all of these schools have had champions and great wrestlers and great teams and all kinds of stuff. I feel like, your run-of-the-mill kid in this area up here has a level of toughness and, community support and these certain characteristics that I think
it's a good environment.
It makes a great wrestler. It's a great environment. It's good people to be around. There hasn't always been huge opportunities to train out here. It's something I'm really grateful to be able to be a part of, is trying to bring, world class. I'm not saying we're coming here and we're just going to put in some time and you come here and you wrestle and you go home and that is what it is. I want to build champions. I want guys that want to be great. I don't, eventually maybe we'll work ourselves into clubs and stuff like that. This is a training facility. We're not going to be like an IKWF team. We're not going to be, doing anything other than a facility where people could come. And my main focus are classes, clinics, camps, and tours. So the classes are 3 times a week, 4 times a week, classes for our members, monthly members. The camps and the clinics, there'll be a lot of information that spreads about that as the time comes, but bringing in, our network between Prater and I, we have a vast network of champions and world team members and Olympians and you name it, that we want to bring into this room and kind of allow these coaches or wrestlers that made an impact on us to try and allow them to kind of pass those same tidbits of information along to our guys. And then, kind of secondary or maybe phase 2 though, is tours. And I want to bring teams to different tournaments around the country. I want them to be able to train. I want them to be able to get their weight down, really run like a high level, structured tour, whether it's for a tournament or whether it's to go and train in a different location somewhere throughout the country or throughout the world. I want to provide life experiences for the kids that wrestling has provided for me. I want them to learn different cultures, different areas, different places, to see it, to feel it. And not only that, but to be pushing and building their minds while they're doing it. I want them to run the hills in a mountain, and then you get to the top of that mountain, you look down and you see a huge valley as far as you can see. When you're exhausted, but you look out and see that, and all of a sudden your chest pops up and you're feeling good. I think those little experiences open the mind and create a lot of self-belief. It's really easy to believe in yourself and buy into your training and stuff like that when you're experiencing new things and different things, and there's reward to it, and you're, it's an exciting thing. So that's what our club's going to be. It's going to be a place where anybody that wants to come boy, girl, young, old. We want hardworking people that are going to come in, pay the price, and put in the work that needs to be put in order to be a champion. And I couldn't be more excited to be at this kind of chapter now, because it's been super great.
Well, what I love about your guys' setup is that you both have homes there. You're not going anywhere, and you're there for like the next 20, 30 years, and you can just sink your teeth in and spend, all these hours at the gym. And, as soon as I'm done with the Smith documentary, I'm coming out and we're going to do a little behind the scenes tour of the facility. I'll hang out for a couple of practices. We'll put the videos up, and I just cannot wait, man. And dude,
sure.
It's exciting. It's exciting, the momentum that's going on. And I'm really, really pumped for you guys. And I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been great to get to know you the past year, and dude, Rumble on the Rooftop. Let's not forget it. That was awesome.
Right. Yeah, man, I really appreciate everything you're doing. This podcast is part of my daily and weekly routine. You bring on the best guys. Congratulations on podcast of the year.
Thank you.
That's a heck of an award, and very well deserved. So it's been great, man. I'm really looking forward to continuing our conversations and bringing you out to the barn, letting you see kind of behind the scenes some of the stuff we're working on. But I feel like, things are in a really good place right now, in spite of a crazy year, a lot of ups and downs, whatever.
Yeah.
But we're 2021 is right around the corner. We're super excited. There's a lot of good stuff to look forward to, for sure.
Indeed. Jordan Blanton, thank you for your time, sir. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Warner. Take care.
Peace.